Shalom, I'm Naama Rue. This is my husband, Rabbi David Rue. And we're going to be reviewing what we've been discussing about the laws of Shmita in the kitchen and how do we handle our scraps, our food, our leftovers, the food that is grown by Jews in the Holy Land during the 7th year of the 7-year cycle has sanctity, innate sanctity to it. And so we have to conduct ourselves with this food in a way that is, thankfully, they give us instructions.
There are a few minor points left over, and I want to summarize, and then we're going to do one more summary, because it's always good to do summaries. Review is very important. If you don't review something 4 times, you haven't learned it yet. So there are a couple of things that we haven't discussed yet. One is, can you use herbs and other plants as medicines from the Shmita year? And the Gemara in Sukkah says, Le'ochla v'lo melugma, that when the Torah says, Natati lechem le'ochla, I have given it to you to eat and to all the animals, it says to eat, and we learn many things out of this, and it says to eat and not for medicine. So you're not allowed to use the products of the Shmita year as medicines. The Aruch HaShulchan does say, and many other Achronim concur, that if I'm making a drink, for instance, this also comes up in Hilchos Shabbos, if I'm making a drink that I need it because it is a medicine for me, but it's also something that healthy people eat. In that case, since it's not clear when I'm drinking it, or whatever else we're talking about, that I'm doing it for refuah, that I'm doing it for a medicine, therefore I can do it with the things of Shmita as well.
Hold on, I just need to make sure I understand, because this is very relevant, right, to me. So you're saying, like, healthy people like to drink nettles tea all year round. I know I need it when I need those nutrients because I'm feeling this way. But since they drink it as a food, even though I usually drink it as a medicine, I can have it during Shmita. However, if I want to have a medicine that is used only as a medicine, like, well, I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to get confused. I would need to harvest it and prepare it and preserve it before the Shmita year begins.
That's correct.
So, like, if I wanted to make like an extract or a tincture of
Iodine.
No, something that I have, like of oregano, is like really important for flu, if you're fighting COVID, preventative, or let's say pine needles is supposed to stop transmission of illness, right? Like, I should harvest all of this before the Shmita year.
I'm not sure pine needles you would have to, because they're not normally considered a food. And something that's not a food doesn't have the sanctity of Shmita. But ignoring that, yes. So the next thing I want to talk about in 1 or 2 sentences is sicha, anointing. It used to be very common that people would clean themselves by anointing themselves with oils. So the halacha is anything that you normally anoint with, you're allowed to anoint with on Shmita. Something that you're not, you cannot. Kvisa, using things for washing. Lemons were very commonly used as a stain remover. Still are by some people. Again, the Gemara says, Lo chlav lo kvisa, God gave us these things to eat and not to do our laundry with. So I want to read from the Rambam, Perek K from Hilchos Shmita v'Yovel. He gives us the general principles. I'm skipping in the Rambam. I'm not reading everything. I'm not giving his examples, for instance. So the Rambam says, in Perek K, Halach Aleph, Perush Shvish nitnu lachilav l'shtia l'sicha l'kasnera l'tzvia. The fruit of all the produce of Shmita was given to us to eat, to drink, to anoint, to light candles for dyeing. Dyeing was a very common thing to be done with things. Now we primarily use artificial dyes. They last longer and don't change color as much. Even though it's not explicit in the Torah, our rabbis have a tradition that you can use it for lighting candles, for instance, olive oil, and for dyeing. In halacha base, la'achila l'shtia ketzad, for eating and drinking hauso, le'achol davar shedarko le'achol, to eat something that we normally eat, v'lishtos davar shedarko lishtos, to drink something that we normally drink, kedin truma meiser sheni, exactly like truma and meiser sheni, as we've discussed this, truma, meiser sheni, and brachos and Shmita are common factors for each other. In halacha bav, l'sicha ketzad, for anointing hausa, l'soch davar shedarko lisoch, you can anoint things that you normally anoint with. Lo yisoch yain v'chometz, avasachu es hashemen. You cannot anoint yourself with wine or vinegar, but you can with olive oil. Alachates litzvia ketzad, for dyeing hausa. Dvarim shdarkom litzboa behem, things that we normally use for dyes. Afal pi shem machal adam, even though they are also human foods. Tzovim behem la adam, you can use them for dyeing things that people are going to use. In halacha yud aleph, this is a very important halacha in the Rambam. Klal gadol amru b'perushvis. There is a general principle that we said with the produce of the Shmita year. Kol shum yuchad l'machal adam, anything that is set aside for human consumption. Kigon chitim te'enim v'anavim, like wheat, figs and grapes, v'kiyotzim, and all other similar things. Ein osin mehem malugma. You're not, or ratia v'kiyotzim. I can't use them for medicine. I can't use them for a bandage or any other similar thing. Afilu ladam, even if it's for a person. Shenamar lechem leochla, as it says in the Torah, for you to eat, for all of you to eat.
Wait, can I ask?
No, let me finish this. Kol shum yuchad lechem yelo chla. Anything that is set aside in general for human consumption is for you to eat. V'lo l'refuah, not for medicine, not for anointing, not for doing your laundry. It's for food. V'kol she'enum yuchad l'machal adam, and something that is not set aside for human food, like the pine needles, as you were saying. Osim behem lugma adam. You can use them for curing people, but not animals. Animals are different. And something that's neither set aside for humans or animals for food or anything else. It depends upon what you were thinking when you planted this thing. If I planted this tree because I wanted to go wood, either for carpentry or for fires, heating my house, cooking, and so on, then it has the halacha of wood. Le'achila, if I planted this pine tree because I wanted the pine nuts, harihu keberos, then it's like fruit.
And foraging in the wild?
Well, it would depend on what most people do there. L'machal adam and l'machal behema. If I planted this both for human consumption and animal consumption, like barley, very common, oats, so on. They have the strictures of human food that you can't use it for medicine. And they have the strictures of animal food that you can't cook it by boiling it, because the animal food normally isn't done this way. Therefore, even if we're doing this for human consumption, we shouldn't do it. This is the Rambam's summary of the general principles of Shmita. Next time I'm going to run through very quickly all of the things that we've discussed. And if you don't remember something is unclear, then you should go back to the previous tape where we discussed it in depth. If it's clear to you, then you know it, and you've got it, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay, so like figs grow and we eat them, right? But the milk of figs can be used as a medicine on the skin.
You couldn't do that with something from Shmita at all, because since its primary use of a fig is human consumption, therefore the drash of the Gemara that God gave it to us as food and not as medicine would apply.
Whoa, I'm gonna have to keep myself in check, because this is a lot of my lifestyle, just whatever I have around that can help. I have to be mindful next year.
One has to, I can go one step farther. Whenever one is handling something holy, one should be mindful.
Amen.
Right? And so whenever one is handling produce of the Shmita, one should be mindful. To a certain extent, it's like handling a Sefer Torah. The Gemara says there's a decree that Sifrei Kodesh, holy books like a Sefer Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzos, but also the other books of the Bible, they're written out, not the printed versions that we have. If you touch them with your hands, they make your hands impure. And the reason is that the Kohanim who have the Truma said the Truma is holy and our Sifrei Torah are holy. So we'll put one beside the other. And the rats came to eat the Truma, and they would also eat the Sifrei Torah. So they made a decree, anything the Sefer Torah touches, anything the Sifrei Kodesh touch becomes tamei, so that you can't put something holy beside it.
The Torah
But the
scroll.
idea is you handle, if you think about it, you're supposed to handle Truma the same way you handle the Sefer Torah, because both have the same type of Kedusha attached to them. So too, just like you wouldn't just play catch with the Sefer Torah, so to speak, right? You wouldn't handle it without thinking about it. So too, when you're handling Truma, even though you think, the Paris of Shvis, the food that the Shmita year, you should be thinking about it. It's in a certain way. It's the same as holding your tefillin or holding a mezuzah or holding a Sefer Torah, something that should be not done offhand or in the light way.
So like really, really all year, every day, every minute, we're gonna be like, it's Shmita year. And
well,
also,
it's holy. It's a year that's set, just like Shabbos is set aside to God, for God, and we're supposed to do godly things on it. So too, the whole Shmita year is set aside for God, and one should think about doing godly things in this year.
I can barely imagine, because for me, having made Aliyah just 2 years ago, I still feel like I'm walking in heaven, like in paradise, being in Israel. Like I'm constantly elated, just breathing the air and walking on the land. So I just want to say, for people who aren't like familiar with this sacredness of the Torah scroll, it used to impress me when my kids at the Jewish day school would do a fire, we call it fire drill. The 8th graders would always take the Torah scrolls outside with them to make sure, like, if God forbid there was going to be a fire, they know they have to go get those Torah scrolls. And also remember when in 2017 in Charlottesville, there were like people with Nazi flags across the street from the synagogue with semi-automatic rifles. And the people in the synagogue escaped through the back door and they took the Torah scrolls with them, right? There's so many stories of Torah scrolls that were rescued from the Holocaust also that you have, that maybe we can share sometime. Okay.